Being a big brain-rot Deltarune fan, which clearly you must be if you've clicked on this video, you can probably relate to the feeling that seeing the trailer for the new Deltarune chapters during the Switch 2 Direct was just insane. Thinking back to 2015 and playing Undertale for the first time, it's difficult to imagine someday its sister game would be platformed by a giant like Nintendo. Not only did we fans see it, but everyone else, whether they were just casual fans who haven't thought about the game in nearly 4 years, or people who somehow haven't heard about it until now, also saw it with us. But being part of such a mainstream video game comes with its ups and downs. New chapters brings in new fans, new discussions, and new theories. And, unfortunately, new issues in discourse. In particular, there's been an influx of Deltarune content on everyone's favorite app to dead name, Twitter. Twitter can be, something of a cesspit, but I'm sure I don't have to tell you that. And from this hellhole rises the discourse, the unholy subject of the video. Oh wait, no, not that one. No, not that one either. There we go, there it is. Reading these tweets, you may be thinking, hey, that's not what Kris goes by. But it's okay, not everyone knows, it's fine. Oh, that's a lot. Well, you know, surely if we all tell these people what it actually is, they'll understand. And okay, yeah, no, alright, I see how it is. They just don't care. So yeah, today I'm talking about the pronouns of pixels on screen. Back in my day, men didn't have no pronouns. We just used to go to war, work 80 hours a day, and abuse our wives. But I promise you, it is important. About 4 months later, and still some people are adamant on using the wrong pronouns for Kris. I haven't really seen anyone make a video explaining it, so I decided for that responsibility to fall onto me, because it's so much more than just these woke liberals with their blue hair trying to shove their ideologies down our throat. Kris is so much more than just the genderless child that I see even devoted fans dismiss them as. So today, let's take a moment to examine Kris's identity and why it's so important. Before we really delve into things, I'd like to take a moment to define some of the terms I'll be using throughout this video. Even if you're familiar with these terms, I'd still recommend watching through this section, as I'll also be explaining the context I use them in during the video. Merriam-Webster defines cisgender as of, relating to, or being a person whose gender identity corresponds to the sex the person was identified as having at birth. When I'm referring to someone who is cisgender, I'll be abbreviating it to cis to keep things simplistic. Transgender is the opposite of cisgender, defined by Merriam-Webster as of, relating to, or being a person whose gender identity differs from the sex the person was identified as having at birth. Like with cisgender, I'll be abbreviating transgender to just trans. The most relevant term to this video will be non-binary. Non-binary is defined as relating to or being a person who identifies with or expresses a gender identity that is neither entirely male nor entirely female. Non-binary does fall under the trans umbrella, as in non-binary people are trans, but non-binary itself is a specific facet of the trans identity. So in some instances, I may be referring to just female to male and male to female people when I say trans people. But in others, I will be using trans to refer to female to male to female, and non-binary people. I've tried to clarify this as best as I can within the video itself, but I felt it was important to note to avoid any confusion. And lastly, when I say pronouns, I'll be following Merriam-Webster's definition once more. The third person personnel pronouns, such as he, him, she, her, and they, them, that a person goes by. Non-binary people go by many pronouns. Some may use strictly they, them, others may go by he, they, and some even use all pronouns, he, she, and they. But for the sake of the video, I'll be operating under the most common assumption of non-binary pronouns, that non-binary people use they, them. With that out of the way, let's talk about Kris, shall we? Okay, hear me out. I know it seems a little silly to argue that Kris's pronouns are, you know, they're pronouns, but there's a reason why there are 47 citations for Kris's pronouns on their wiki page. People just won't accept the fact that Kris's pronouns are, in fact, they, them. But fucking seriously, have you played the game before? Every single character in this game has always referred to Kris as they. But Kris is quite good at games, aren't they? Do they like it or not? They have not been up to anything strange. What the? Are you kidding? I love Kris! They were one of my original viewers! But sometimes, it's like, dude, I don't know why, but like, for some reason, they're really good at flirting?
Kris is forcing you to be on their side!
And trust me, the list goes on and on and on. It has gone so far that someone literally created a mod that highlights all of Kris's pronouns in red to show you how everyone refers to this character. Never he, not her, always they. I really like this mod mainly because it reminds me of all those other images where there'll be just a word engulfed in blinding light that covers half the screen. It's great. The ignorance in calling Kris anything but them is astounding when there's literally no proof of that being anywhere else in the game. But you know what, maybe Toby Foster's just trying to leave their gender ambiguous. And if it was just the pronoun stuff, I can maybe understand how people could think this, but all of it really falls apart when you consider... While many people pay little mind to the clothes they wear, okay, put some pants on for Craig's sake. My god, thank you. For others, particularly queer people, their chosen outfits are of significant importance to their gender expression. And what better way to express yourself than a basic long sleeve shirt and pants? Yep, that's all Kris wears, repping a solid 3 colors every day. There's nothing about their outfit that gives any indication that they are male or female. Despite this, Kris's light road outfit is arguably one of the largest influences on the general audience's perception of them as a man. I think this can be best explained by the lack of femininity in their clothing. In our culture, assuming you're from the great red, white, and blue nation, someone displaying even a small amount of femininity immediately overpowers any masculine features they may possess. Think of it like this. A woman can have short hair, wear suits, and work out, all while still being perceived as a cis, straight woman. But the moment a cis, straight man decides to experiment with a bit of eyeliner or, heaven forbid, wear a dress, his identity as a heterosexual, cis male is called into question. This isn't to say that cis, straight women can't face backlash for these things, but it's generally more acceptable for them to adopt a few masculine traits while retaining their womanhood. Whereas in the man's case, a single aspect of femininity. That's such a hard word for no reason. Whereas in the man's case, a single aspect of femininity immediately identifies him as being other. This even influences how we perceive androgyny, the quality or state of being neither specifically feminine nor masculine, which is especially relevant in Kris's case. When most people, even some queer people, picture a non-binary person, they usually imagine someone perfectly androgynous. Many non-binary people fall outside this rigid expectation of their expression, but given how common this line of thinking is, and for the sake of my explanation, I'll be referencing this perception of non-binary going forward. Now, most people expect androgyny to be a perfect balance of femininity and masculinity, right? Wrong! At least it's not perceived that way in our society. Here's a fun little exercise for those who can conjure an apple at home. Picture an androgynous outfit. Does it maybe have a baggy shirt or sweater? Loose pants? Or if you imagine an androgynous person dressing up for an event, do you think it's more plausible for them to wear a suit than a dress? A lot of androgynous outfits consist of what we would consider more masculine clothing. If you take that baggy shirt and put a skirt underneath it, suddenly, a lot of people would say that outfit is too feminine to be androgynous. Much like how a single feminine trait turns a cis, straight man to something else, a single feminine article of clothing turns an androgynous outfit not androgynous. Unandrogynous? Yeah, sure, let's go with that. This isn't an all-encompassing example, of course, and I'm certainly oversimplifying the nuances of the androgynous expression, but my point is, masculinity is assumed to be the default, while femininity challenges that. It's a byproduct of our culture's favoritism towards men over women, which will always, in some way, be relevant when discussing gender. In Deltarune, this notion is best exemplified by Susie. Looking at Susie's outfit, it doesn't exactly scream feminine either. Ripped baggy jeans, a loose purple jacket. However, unlike Kris, Susie has longer, more feminine hair, something that can define her as a girl. Of course, she's also explicitly referred to with she/her pronouns, but her gender can be loosely assumed by her appearance. Conversely, however, Rouse is the perfect example of someone shattering their masculinity. When you first meet him, when you first meet him after Lancer runs him over, you're met with this small, cute creature wearing a green chest with a heart and a pink scarf. Despite him literally introducing himself as the prince of his kingdom, I've seen many people mistake him for a girl at first glance. Though those comments have died down since chapter 1, you still get the occasional, "Wait, that's not a girl?" here and there. But, in comparison, Kris doesn't possess any trait that could immediately be read as feminine. They wear a plain shirt and pants, and their hair is short enough not to be interpreted as too girly. So for people who are scrambling to assign them a gender, they treat them as a boy. Nothing has shattered their default masculinity. There's no way to change this single outfit that would communicate Kris's non-binary identity. Go to feminine, players will assume they're a girl. Go to masculine, or black femininity, and players will think they're a boy. But the fact remains that it is androgynous, so no one has any grounds to assume that Kris is a male based on this one outfit alone. And story-wise, Kris's simple, boring outfit fits their character perfectly. They live second to their brother. Whenever Kris approaches the other characters in Light World, they talk about Azriel. Even Toriel, Kris's mother, try as she might, she just can't connect with Kris like she could with Azriel. Putting yourself in Kris's shoes, it might make you want to close off, not feel the need to express yourself anymore. Just wishing you could escape into a fantasy where you could be whoever you like and wear whatever you'd want. Hey, wait a second. In the Dark World, Kris assumes an entirely different persona, that of a knight. With this new persona, Kris dons a glimmering suit of armor and adopts shades of blue and silver. It's a pretty sick and badass outfit. Now, we should all understand that there aren't truly boy colors or girl colors, but subconsciously, we still tend to read blue as masculine and pink as feminine. So, Kris's color palette in the Dark World is used to substantiate the arguments of those who perceive Kris as a man. You keen-eyed viewers may notice, however, that Kris's armor isn't only blue. It also comes with a bright pink cape as they wield a pink sword alongside. Based on what I established earlier, this should be enough for people to question their impression of Kris as a man, but something to consider about gendered colors. While yes, we do subconsciously perceive pink as feminine and blue as masculine, it's not often as damning an indication of gender as, say, wearing makeup. There's an abundance of men's clothing that comes in various shades of pink, coral, and salmon colors. Hell, I got plenty of pink shirts and shorts myself that I'm completely chill with wearing because, like, who cares? However, I do think it's still noteworthy that Toby Fox chose to add pink to Kris's Dark World palette. He could easily have made Kris's cape and sword red, white, yellow, or any other color, but he chose pink instead. There's a balance of blue and pink, feminine and masculine, leading into an androgynous palette. This was intentional. Besides their Light World outfit, the other most significant influence on Kris's perception as a man is the role Kris plays in the Dark World. Kris's chosen identity as a knight overwhelmingly reads to a player as male. Fictionally and historically, knights have typically been men. They act as saviors and protectors, which, even today, are viewed as masculine roles. But still, there's no basis in assuming Kris is a male solely because they choose to be a knight. In this day and age, anyone of any gender can be a knight in their fantasy world. Besides, Kris's knight armor isn't even the only outfit they wear in the Dark World. Take a look at this. During Chapter 2's act against Virokun, Kris changes into a doctor's lab coat while wearing a head mirror. In Chapter 3's act against the Shadow Guy, Kris puts on a stylish suit and tie. And during the cowboy minigame, Kris is wearing a stereotypical cowboy outfit while riding a horse. These outfits are typically worn by what are recognized as masculine professions. But what about the other outfits? Back in Chapter 2's act against Virokun, Kris can also change into a nurse's outfit, wearing a nurse's cap rather than a doctor's headband. During Chapter 3's cooking minigame, Kris wears a chef's outfit with heels. And finally, in Chapter 3's Lightner live concert, Kris is rocking a glamorous dress and heels as they shred the guitar. Again, we see a balance of femininity and masculinity, striking once more to achieve that perfect androgyny. To restate something I mentioned previously, not all binary people are perfectly androgynous, especially not all the time. And while certain professions are stereotyped as being masculine or feminine, obviously, that doesn't prevent women from being doctors or men from being singers or dancers. But Toby Fox is playing on people's stereotypes regarding gender roles and identity, not to enforce them, but to communicate Kris's non-binary identity. But what if they're masculine and feminine outfits so people can project their own gender on their character, you may ask? I'll address the allegation of Kris being a self-insert in more depth later on, but specifically in this instance, it should be noted that these outfits can't be equipped by the player. Equipping the doctor's outfit over the nurse's outfit is based on a 50-50 chance, and we have no say in the other outfits Kris wears. They're chosen, presumably by Kris. If Toby intended for the audience to project their own gender onto Kris, why let Kris switch between masculine and feminine outfits in a single playthrough with no input from the player? Because they're not Kris's main outfits, I think it's easier for the general audience to overlook them if they're already adopted to the mindset that Kris is male. But much like the pink of their knight's armor, just because someone can overlook them doesn't negate their significance. Kris needs to wear these different costumes and outfits for their identity and their character. They're getting the chance to actually express themselves instead of just hiding in a shirt and pants. They have the freedom to try on something without embarrassment or ridicule. And just like them, you could wear whatever you want. While it's true that everything I've mentioned so far doesn't explicitly confirm Kris's gender, it heavily implies it. But like, at the same time, do you really think it's applied for shits and giggles or something? But as for any actual confirmation, the closest thing we have is the signs from Chapter 3's Egg Room. Upon entering, the first signs you see are, "Welcome to Mancountry," and "It's a man's world." However, go to the left of the room and you'll see a third sign saying, "Non-men are A-OK too." Note that it doesn't say women are A-OK too, but specifically non-men, a term typically used to refer to any gender identity that does not align with male. There really isn't any apparent reason for this line of dialogue to exist other than to disprove the notion that Kris is a man. Seriously, what other reason could it be there for? Because I guarantee you, it wouldn't be in the game if it wasn't serving a purpose. It goes out of its way to specify that non-men are A-OK too. Like the game is trying to say that Kris, too, is allowed here. You know, because they aren't a man. Listen, I don't know how I can make this any clearer. If you're still struggling to see what I'm trying to say here, you may just be stupid at this point. But now we reach the crux of this issue. Why does any of this actually matter? These are just pixels on a screen, right? Why should I care about this blue hair character's pronouns are? Yes, Kris isn't real. You aren't committing any tangible harm by misgendering them. But it transcends just the game. It's virtually impossible to obtain the exact number of non-binary people in the United States, as many non-binary people choose to remain closeted for their own safety, and many more have yet to realize they even are non-binary. But a study from the Williams Institute based at UCLA's School of Law estimates that roughly 1.2 million LGBTQ people in the US identify as non-binary. That's less than 1% of the United States population, but 1.2 million is still 1.2 million. Compared to the bald eagle's population in the US, our ever beautiful, ever American national bird, which is about 316,000, that's almost 4 times larger. Most people in the United States have seen a bald eagle, so it's even more likely that eventually they'll meet a non-binary person. For hundreds of years, trans people have existed and continue to exist. Most people in the Deltarune community already accept this since, oh my god, have you seen how many queer people there are in this community? I've heard people recount how Undertale helped them realize they're gay or trans, or just that these people exist at all.
Oh, Alphys posted a picture. Dinner with the girlfriend. Wait, I thought Alphys was a girl.
For those who aren't queer, it may be difficult to understand and accept a coworkers, classmates, friends, or family members' sudden change in identity. They're likely unsure how to properly respect their loved one's new identity, and no matter what form of media it's in, be it television shows, books, movies, or even video games, good representation can open the door to conversations with their acquaintances, friends, or family members, which can eventually lead to understanding. It's not like the game tries to hide it, as anyone who actually reads the game will be quick to notice that everyone in the game refers to Kris as they, them.
During Pride Month, they only ever call me they, so I'm non-binary. So I think it's fine still. Where did you even get that info that Kris is non-binary? Every single time they refer to Kris is they. They have never referred to them as anyone except they. I was reading the game. That's where I got that info.
Now, as I've previously established, the game does make it pretty clear that everyone refers to Kris as they. It's not all hidden, but queer people and allies are still likely to take notice of this distinction more easily than those outside the community. Those who aren't queer or educated allies may not initially register the importance of Kris's identity. A great example of this is from a playthrough of Deltarune by the YouTuber Yup. During his first playthrough of Chapter 3, he mistakenly referred to Kris as he. The comments were quick to correct him on this, and, in the next episode, he mentioned the comments, apologized, and acknowledged Kris by the correct pronouns for the rest of the gameplay. In the comments of his second episode, Yup addressed the situation further, disregarding whatever the fuck the starting comment was about. Seriously, this is what I'm talking about. He explains how this can be good practice for when he meets someone in real life who goes by they them, so he doesn't continuously make the mistake towards them. It's a sweet, very real sentiment, and using someone's correct pronouns goes a long way in validating their identity. Not only does using Kris's correct pronouns allow people to practice for when they meet a non-binary person in real life, but it also demonstrates to these non-binary people that they respect non-binary identities. What may seem like something small to them means a tremendous amount to the trans and non-binary people in their own lives, who will feel safer and happier around them as a result. It should go without saying that identity is important to everyone, not just non-binary people. Cis people, however, are afforded the privilege of having their identity be immediately identifiable due to the way they present themselves. For most cis people, there's a very minimal chance they'll be misgendered. Trans people who are male to female or female to male dress differently, undergo surgeries and/or take hormones to better align with their perceived traits of their true gender. As they appear closer to their true gender, they're less likely to be misgendered by those seeing them in passing. They still can be and often are misgendered, of course, especially if they're openly trans or choose not to adopt other perceived traits of their true gender, such as trans women who dress like a tomboy. But my point is that the adoption of these traits helps strangers identify them as their true gender, use the correct pronouns, and validate their identity. Non-binary people may also dress differently, undergo surgeries, and take hormones, but they struggle more with being perceived as their true gender. Like I said earlier, generally, people expect non-binary people to look androgynous, but many don't, and even for those who attempt to, being perfectly androgynous is just virtually impossible. Strangers will always be looking for something that identifies them as either male or female. Non-binary people will rarely be referred to with the correct pronouns upon someone's first interaction with them, and thus struggle considerably to feel validated in their true identity. But why is it so crucial to validate trans people's identities? Can they not seek that validation from within themselves? Why is it up to us? Trans people are by far one of the most marginalized groups in the US. Especially within the past few years, there's been an unprecedented level of hate directed towards them. This prevalent and persistent vitriol has led to discrimination and violence, causing many trans people to fear for their safety and their jobs within their communities and even among their own families. The act of misgendering someone might seem like its impact pales in comparison to blatant transphobia, but misgendering, especially intentional and repeated, fosters an environment of disrespect and othering, which prevents understanding, encourages discrimination, and contributes to the spread of transphobic rhetoric. Misgendering also directly impacts the individual. It makes trans people feel anxious, depressed, and unsafe. It's a significant part of why trans people have such high rates of mental health issues and, unfortunately, an elevated suicide rate. Trans people are just people. They don't want to hurt you, they don't want to indoctrinate your children or whatever other fear-mongering tactic trans folks decide to push next. They just want to exist as who they are. And the studies back it up. Transitioning has proven to be beneficial for the mental health of many trans people. You can try to stuff it down, you can try to ignore it, but you can't run from who you are. How can we hold that against them? Trans people will always exist, therefore representation will always be important. They, like any other marginalized community, deserve to see characters like them, especially for those who fall outside the traditional binary, like non-binary and genderqueer people. Kris will always be non-binary, and Kris's identity will always be important. Now, this video is supposed to be Kris focused, but I thought it was worth mentioning Undertale and Deltarune's other potential non-binary character, Frisk. In conversations about queer representation on Undertale and Deltarune, Frisk is somewhat overlooked. This isn't to say they go completely unacknowledged, especially recently, I feel, but when Undertale first released, their gender wasn't really something discussed, at least in terms of them being non-binary. Conversations at the time were mostly speculation at what their true gender was, either male or female, or their identity was written off as being a self-insert. But while they're more of a blank slate than Kris, and definitely more obedient to the player's instructions, there is more to them than just being a self-insert, which players would recognize if, you know, they actually read the dialogue. Haha, am I right? yeah, we used to have fun here. The game makes it obvious during certain dialogue options that Frisk, despite being under our control, is their own person with their own personality and preferences. Mystic Slime made a great video talking about Frisk, so I recommend checking that out. He explains how Frisk has their own unique quirks, like how they absolutely despise soda to the point where they won't even pick it up as a healing option if it's available, or how they'll spare certain enemies in playful or silly ways, implying that they have their own ideas about the best way to demonstrate mercy. But I would argue the most significant, undeniable testament to Frisk's identity as, well, Frisk, not the player, is this. At the beginning of the game, you name your character. You play as Frisk for the duration of the game, so it's assumed that they take on this name. But, as revealed near the end of the True Pacifist route, Frisk does not actually go by the name the player supposedly gave them. After Frisk saves their monster friends and Azure returns to his true form, he asks, "You're not actually Kara, are you? Kara's been gone for a long time. What is your name? Frisk? That's a nice name." Frisk is not influenced by every action of the player. They have their own thoughts, opinions, and, obviously, their own name. They are so much more than just a blank slate. They are their own person. I will admit, Frisk's gender is still more ambiguous than Kris's. Kris's struggles and identity, including their gender, are intertwined with the story of Deltarune, whereas Undertale lacks its kind of explicit storytelling for Frisk. But it still begs the question, why refer to this character with they-them pronouns if they're not just a self-insert? Whether you choose to believe Frisk is non-binary or not, the ambiguity of Frisk's identity, when compared to the much more explicit references to identity and gender in Deltarune, makes it clear that Toby is taking the steps to ensure we understand that Kris was not intended to be a self-insert character. Kris may be a character that we take control of, but Kris is not the player. They're capable of taking their own actions outside of our own influence, and often do. They literally rip the player out of their body at numerous points, specifically so they can do whatever they want. Kris is their own person, there's no denying that. I seriously don't understand how people could look at this during the events of Chapter 4 and still think Kris is just a self-insert. I'm gonna... And if Toby really wanted to make Kris a guy or woman, he would have done it long ago back in 2018. And for those who still may think he doesn't care, back in the 6th anniversary Undertale stream where some folks from Fangamer were playing Deltarune, someone referred to Kris as he, bringing Toby to correct them immediately afterwards.
Kris, can you reach it?
He's stuck in a
He's stuck in a cutscene. You can't do it.
Kris cannot reach
You
it.
can't do it.
They're stuck.
Ah, but who am I kidding? Toby doesn't care for his Western audience, right? They have their own opinions. They have their own thoughts. They have their own identity. They have their own gender. They are non-binary. On a lighter note, before I wrap everything up, I thought it'd be fun to do a quick lightning round addressing some common misconceptions or blatantly ignorant comments I've seen. So, without further ado, Toby said Frisk and Kris's genders are up to players' interpretation. You know, despite everything I said earlier, this really does kind of just debunk everything I've worked up to, huh? It's pretty well known at this point that during an interview back in 2015, when asked about what gender Frisk really is, he said, yeah, Frisk is just supposed to be a self-insert so the player can put themselves into a Frisk character, so their gender is up to the player's interpretation. Which, yeah, that's a pretty shut and close case there, huh? I can't just go against Toby Fox's word now, can I? Except there's just one small, tiny detail I noticed during this interview. If you look closely, and I mean very closely, you can see the truth. The truth being that this interview never fucking happened ever. I'm genuinely so shocked that so many people believe this myth because it just takes one Google search to just completely debunk this myth from 10 years ago! An entire decade, and people just hear one schmuck go, actually, Toby Fox said this once, and then no one does their research to see if that's true. They just go with it because they don't actually care. They just want to see other people be wrong. I know I said a lightning round, but this one specific myth needed a more in-depth look because of how often I see it being thrown around. It's generally baffling to me that so many people just believe this. It's never stated that they're non-binary. It's also never stated that they're male or female, so why would you not refer to these characters as they, them when they're the only pronouns they're ever referred to with? So then their gender is ambiguous? Again, while this is more debatable point for Frisk's case, it really isn't in Kris's because of how explicitly we've been shown that they are a separate character from the player. Why would they want other characters to refer to them with they them pronouns if it isn't their true identity? Toriel is their mother. You think she's calling her child them because she doesn't know gender or something? You're stupid, get out of my sight. Susie calls Kris dude. First of all, many people use dude as gender neutral these days. Language grows and evolves over time. I don't think I know a single person who doesn't use dude as gender neutral. Secondly, it's Susie, dude, look at her! Of course she's gonna call anyone dude. Hell, she calls Noelle dude, and she's girly pop girl. I don't wanna hear it. But by that logic, this must make Susie a guy, because she called herself king of the trash pile, so you know what, good for him. But Kris doesn't have a personality. Go back to this timestamp of the video. But Frisk doesn't have any personality. I said go back to this timestamp of this video. I could have sworn someone referred to Kris as he before. Oh yes, I'm sure you have sworn that. I'm sure you read through all the dialogue of the game and found the one instance of someone calling Kris he, and not your own personal headcanon clouding your mind. Please, do link me the instance someone called Kris a he. If you do, I will delete this video and nuke my channel altogether. But Kris wears guy clothing. As I just earlier, there is literally nothing explicitly masculine about the clothing they wear in the light world. Kris only wears a long sleeve t-shirt and brown pants. Anyone can fucking wear that boring ass combo. Just go back and rewatch the entire video at this point. What if Kris wants to be a femboy? Yeah, no, seriously, this was a real, actual comment I received from someone who was hellbent on believing Kris is a guy, and when I brought up the different outfits they can wear, this was their response. I don't even remember what I responded back with. I think I just called them stupid, and they didn't reply back, so I'm pretty sure I won that. Some may want to write it off, but the identity of a fictional character can resonate with and have an impact on people in real life. Many players have attested that Undertale and Deltarune was their gay or trans awakening. Connecting these characters allowed them to discover and explore a part of themselves that otherwise may have remained buried for years. Or it made them aware that queer people even exist in the first place.
Wait, I thought Alphys was a girl.
They may just be pixels on a screen, but their influence shouldn't be understated. Not everyone may connect to these characters in the same way or realize their own identities because of them, and that's okay. But it means everything to those who saw themselves in these characters. And even for those whom the story didn't resonate as much, it can still act as a bridge for understanding the identities of the classmates, co-workers, friends, and family in their own lives. Before Undertale's 10th anniversary, Toby tweeted out a Memory Flower website, which asked everyone how Undertale impacted their lives. I saw so many people that day explaining the very same things I've talked about in this video. I'm sure Toby has seen them and understands what these characters do for his fans. That being said, why doesn't Toby just flat out confirm this? Why doesn't Toby just make Kris rip the soul out of their body, look into the camera, and say,
Hey guys, my name's Kris Dreamer, and my pronouns are they, them.
And for a while, I wanted something like this too. I and many others just wish Toby would confirm their identities so we don't have to keep arguing with ignorant people. But not all representation has to be so in your face. A significant part of normalizing these identities that lie outside the traditional binary is just treating the characters like characters. While stories that explore different gender identities and death will always be important, so are those in which these identities are integrated naturally. It helps other people become accustomed to these and see them as normal, rather than something to be examined and ostracized. How do you say this fucking word?
Ostracize.
Ostracize? You know what? No, leave that in the video. I deserve to get shunned for that one. God damn it, dude. It helps other people become accustomed to them and see them as normal, rather than something to be examined and ostracized. This is the way Toby Fox has chosen to represent his queer characters, and this is constant of most of Toby's work. He rarely definitively states anything. He lets players interpret and eventually understand the meaning themselves. And I think there's something about that that's very beautiful and impactful. Fortunately, we have a lot more to see of Toby's work in the future. These last chapters greatly expanded on Kris's character and gave us a little taste of where their story is headed, and I can't wait to see what he's got in store for the little goober. Thank you all so much for watching. This isn't my usual form of content I make, but I'm very passionate about the topic, so I felt like it was needed to bring to you beautiful people out there. I'll be honest, if you're watching some niche YouTuber on the identity of Kris, you're probably so deeply brain-rotted into the fandom that I'm sure you already knew all this by now. But hopefully I was at least able to bring things to perspective or give you more information that you may not have already known about. Honestly, if you're getting sick of arguing with someone about Kris's gender, just link them this video or something. It's at least one way to get myself out there, huh? Also, incredible shout out and thank you to my wonderful partner who also happens to be non-binary themselves, Ashley. They helped look through the script and give some feedback plus more information on identity, gender, and their own personal experiences with clothing and such, so big thanks to them. Seriously, this video would have been way messier without their help. So if you want to see more from Ashley, you can. Nah, but seriously, they just don't want any of their socials exposed. But they are in a couple of my other videos on my channel, such as ranking all Undertale and Deltarune songs, a live dub of chapters 1 and 2 of Deltarune. Please go watch. Oh my goodness, I worked so on that video. Please go watch. And many more videos to come. Okay, yeah, I think that's all I got. Comment down below if there's anything you think I missed regarding Kris's gender, or hey, if you got sent this video because you're uninformed or just being ignorant, let me know how I helped educate you into Kris's identity and why it matters. Thanks again for watching.